Hello, hi everyone. This is Bhupati studying information technology in NMIT. Today, we are going to look into Amazon Web Services and its DNS services. So now, just to know what we are looking at, what we're going to look into right now, as you can see in the image, we already have an application which is running on the AWS. So in this lab, what we're going to do is we're going to point the application to a domain name, which we're going to buy from a domain namespace provider, and then try to access our application using the domain which we just pointed it to. So now let's take a look at things which we have already on the AWS console. So this is the AWS console which we have, and let me quickly take you through the instances which we have. So we are going into EC2 Elastic Cloud Computing instances which we have running. Let's just give it a second for it to load. All right, so as you could see, we have 5 instances running. Alright, so now out of these 5 instances, the queue server is the one which we manages the queue which we of orders which is being placed through our application, and web server is the one which is hosting our website, and another Windows web server is where our other backup files are running. And the other two things which we see, ASG web server and ASG web server, are the auto scaling instances. So these instances is going to run all the time. So even if any one of the server is going to go down, it's going to automatically create another web server. So our application is going to be running all the time. So this is where, and another thing which we have to look into is the elastic IP. So if you look into elastic IP, you can actually see this is the IP address which has been assigned to our application. So this IP address is static. It is not going to change at any point of a time. So anytime you want to access the application, you can actually go into this particular IP address, and it's going to take you right to your application. So now, all right. So now let's look into the DNS services. What we going to do? So since we already have our application running, so we can actually verify that our application is running by going into our load balancer and try to access our application through that. All right, so that is good. So we are able to access our application through our load balancer. Now let's look into some configuration which we have to do for pointing it to a DNS. And before I say point it to a DNS, the URL or domain name space is not provided by Amazon, so we have to get it from an a third party URL or domain name provider. So now here in this case we are using a domain name provider called namecheap.com. So now let's quickly sign into their site, and so I have if you look into my domain list. Okay, so now this Bhupati Dinosaur dot online is the domain which I have actually purchased from namecheap.com. So this is where we're going to point our application to. So now let's look into some settings which we have to go through before. All right, so now we're going to go into hosted zones. And so this is the website which we are planning to point it to. So now these are the settings which we actually have to look. So now the domain name is going to be the one which is being provided by the third party, and you're going to use it as a public hosted domain. And yeah, you're going to have it as a public URL. That's just a comment line. You can change it to anything as you like. And after you do that, Amazon is going to give you a list of domain name servers, which you can actually use. So now here, these are the list of servers which has been provided to us by Amazon. So now once we have all these lists, so all you have to do is take a copy of this list, and we have to go into our name server. And then once you go into managing your name server, okay, so these settings may vary from a different domain providers. So I mean, the way the interface looks and where you're going to add. But this one for namecheap.com, the name servers can be added into just by clicking on to manage. And so these are the list which Amazon has provided us. So we've just added them in here. So once we added them, and then once we saved them, depending upon the domain name provider again and how long it's gonna take for it to get activated. So ours is activated already. So now we're gonna look into accessing our website now. All right, so now let's quickly try accessing our site as we discussed. So now, first thing, what we're gonna do is we just have to make sure our instances are all running perfectly. Uh, Pretty good. All our instances are working perfectly. They are in the running state. So now we're gonna go open up a new URL, and we're gonna try accessing just our domain name. Uh, Good. So now here, actually, what this means is when you try to access the URL, as you could remember, we have pointed our uh, Internet Information Services, which is our IIS, which is there in our web server to this domain. So when you just access the domain, it's gonna simply access the home page of the IIS. So now we're gonna access our application just by pointing it to. So this is the application which we have created inside our IIS. So I'm just gonna access them, and boom, here we are. So that's it, folks. This is how we're gonna have a domain namespace configured for any application which you're hosting on the Amazon. So all you have to do is buy uh, a domain from any of the third-party provider, and then use the settings which is provided by Amazon and put them on the third-party site, and you should be up without a problem. And if you still have any questions, please post it on the comment of this video. I'll do my best to get back to you. Thank you. Have a good day.